Hello, friends. Welcome to the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune. Perryn Keys here, hanging out with Reed Darcey, our LSU women's basketball beat reporter, and by Lee Trevino, who has decided to come off the 18th green to join us before he will head out to Augusta. And just a matter of days, you can't wipe the smile off his face. Scott Rabalais here to join us. We of course are here to discuss more than anything LSU women's basketball. The week that was, the eventful week that was, ending of course with the Tigers' loss to Iowa in the Elite Eight in Albany, New York, and everything that has followed since. And so we will get right into it. Gentlemen, how you guys doing? The flight back home was okay, I trust, and maybe got a couple of decent nights sleep here in your own bed. It's got to be great.
Flight was great. I'm doing great. I don't know if I'm doing as great as Rab because he's about to go to Augusta in a few days. So,
and I don't feel bad about it.
The drool falling out of the side of his mouth. He's like, can't wait for the pimento cheese sandwiches.
Pimento cheese, that's right.
Makes me sick to my stomach. Anyway, we will get on to business right here. You all are here, obviously, to tune in to LSU women's basketball talk, and talk about it. We will. It's been an eventful 72, 96 hours here, and obviously the Tigers at our crossroads with Angel Reese's departure, and we will find out about Hailey Van Lith. Presumably here shortly, but a bit of business here first, as always. Of course, if you're tuning in, if you're listening, you know that the Advocate's always been the #1 destination for LSU sports coverage. So please join us. If you have not, subscribe to the Advocate, whether that's in print or digital. You go to theadvocate.com/subscribe. And stay up to date with everything LSU related with our LSU newsletter. Of course, as we always say, it's a busy spring. Springtime is always busy. Spring practice, we're about 2 weeks away from the spring game. Spring practice is going headstrong into its final, several practices, couple of weeks here. And Wilson Alexander is all over that. LSU gymnastics, of course, is about to head to the NCAA regionals. LSU softball is back on track. LSU baseball's got a lot of work to do, but nonetheless, it's all to say that there's plenty going on here and plenty to try to keep your arms around. But you can find out about it all in one place if you get the headlines delivered straight to your inbox. So go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter to sign up for our newsletter, and that way you don't have to go trolling all over the universe to find the latest. We are here every Monday and Thursday on the LSU Sports Insider on all our social channels, specifically our YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. If you go to YouTube, search LSU Tigers on NOLA.com and check it out. That way you can subscribe and you'll never miss an episode. You can catch us live on Mondays and Thursdays. If you don't catch us live, you can catch us there after the fact on that same YouTube channel. You can also catch us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found. And if you had tuned in, you knew that we went a day early, actually, on our last podcast. We went on Sunday to get ahead of a game that wound up breaking records. 12.3 million viewers across all ESPN platforms, the highest rated women's basketball game of all time. It outdistanced, I think, every single NBA game last season except for one, which was the clincher in the NBA Finals, and outdid every other regular season game in college football last year except for Ohio State, Michigan. So that really tells you all you need to know about the interest in this game. And it certainly did not come out on the right end for LSU and for LSU fans, but the game itself was a banger. Gentlemen, I think we were hoping for elite level basketball, and elite level basketball we got. Caitlin Clark, what else can you say about the leading scorer in women's basketball history? 41 points, 12 assists. She ran a show, guys. Sometimes you just got to tip your cap. And of course, Angel Reese, who suffers some sort of foot injury or ankle injury, and that may or may not have limited her. But nonetheless, how about that? A dominant second quarter, and she finishes with 17 points, 20 rebounds. And so let's just start from there, gentlemen. Your 2 cents on the game. Reed, we'll start with you.
It's just Caitlin Clark. There wasn't much else you could do with some of the shots she hit. Like you said, 41 points, 12 assists, 7 rebounds. The goal was to, try to contain her as much as you could, and containing her means holding her to 30 points about, right? She got 41. That was a little too much. It was just incredible to watch her play, incredible to see some of the shots that she made. I'm not sure there was a defense that could have stopped her from getting those shots, getting those points. So like you said, sometimes you just got to tip your hat. LSU kind of struggled, offensively. I think if you look at the layups they missed, they shot 22 of 43 on their layups. They rebounded the ball really well. They grabbed 23 offensive rebounds, but from those 23 offensive rebounds, they only scored 14 second chance points. So they struggled to shoot efficiently around the rim. And that's really, I think, what did them in offensively. They're so built to score those points around the rim and to get to the free throw line and get layups. And they struggled to do that against Iowa. And sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles, And also Iowa did a good job defending them. We saw in the first half them go to this sort of trapping 2-3 zone type of look that they would shade their defense over to the strong side and really pack the paint around Angel and Anissa. And that really baited LSU into shooting threes, which, it's not their bread and butter. It's not how they want to score. It's not what they're most comfortable doing. And so LSU finished with 24 3-pointers, which was a season high. And I think that's
24
telling.
3-point attempts.
3-point attempts, sorry.
Yeah,
They didn't make
eight.
24 threes. They attempted 24 threes, and that was a season high. That just shows how Iowa did a good job of getting them outside their comfort zone and defending them really well. And in the first half, I thought Angel probably played some of the best basketball I've seen her play, given the stakes
I agree.
of the game. She was incredible, but that ankle injury kind of derailed things a little bit. And obviously in the second half, she wasn't as good as she was in the first, and Caitlin Clark took advantage. It was really that third quarter where Caitlin Clark hit 4 threes, had 3 assists, something like that. That's really when it started to slip away. But all in all, it was a fun game. It lived up to the hype somehow. And it was just a really cool moment to be there and to watch. I think we're gonna look back at that game as really like a seminal moment, for women's basketball. It was a big deal. It was really fun, and I'm glad I was able to be a small part of it.
Reb?
There's criticism, for any team when they lose, and certainly there's been criticism of LSU for how they tried to defend Clark or not. I thought they tried some things. That you would see Angel drift out on the perimeter, try to get. She's long. She's got a lot of height and long arms. You try to get in her face, where you still got Anissa Morrow down low to rebound. They tried Van Lith. They tried Poa. Poa got in some foul trouble, so she couldn't play. She only played. I think she hadn't played in 21 minutes, and then maybe they could have played Flaw J. Johnson on her more. But at the same time, I was reminded watching Caitlin Clark. And then Hailey Van Lith, she was caught one time just kind of going like
Shrugging
what
her
am I supposed to
shoulders.
do?
Yeah.
Yep.
It reminded me of the Peach Bowl when Joe Burrow threw all those touchdown passes against Oklahoma, and you could see the Oklahoma defensive backs like, I had the guy covered, and he just put the ball in there. It's like
What do you want?
What can you do? And sometimes there's just not that much you can do. We were sitting courtside across from the LSU bench. So I'm looking down especially in Iowa's in the second half, they're shooting at the far goal. And she moves around Van Lith and she shoots drifting to her left. She's shooting a 3-pointer and makes it. And then she's drifting to her right and shoots a 3-pointer and makes it. And usually when someone's drifting, that you're like, they're not going to make it.
It's off the mark.
Yeah, what you're supposed to be square to the target and be set and everything. And she's just, when she's that on, there's not a whole lot anybody can do. Gio Auriemma, the UConn plays Iowa in the Final Four. He said, I called all the coaches who stopped her this year. No one called me back. So you just LSU needed to, and to Reed's point, LSU, it was a lot of little things that conspired against LSU. They didn't make their layups. They rebounded great, but they didn't get a lot of second chance points. They settled for too many jump shots. They had some kind of unforced turnovers, like Hailey Van Lith threw the ball just completely out of bounds a couple of times, and it was just they needed to be at their very best, and I think they could have won. I mean, they beat them last year, and I think they could have won, but it just wasn't meant to be in this game. And you have to credit Iowa, and I think if you're an LSU fan, you have to be rooting for them to win it all. Because if you don't win, you want to be the team. You want to be beaten by the team that did win it all.
And there's no listen. I'm sorry, but there's no shame in losing to the greatest scorer of all time, particularly when she's on. Listen, so many things have to go into a win. As we saw last year, two different teams. We understand that from last year's championship game, but nonetheless, Jasmine Carson hit 6 threes. That was, she had never done that before, and Caitlin Clark was excellent, but not otherworldly like she can sometimes be. And in this game, she happened to be otherworldly. I do think that some of this, so many, even the coaching staff itself actually mentioned this beforehand. Caitlin's going to get her points. It's okay. Don't let her get 77 assists. Well, she didn't get 77, but she got 12. And listen, that's the thing. That's the difference between her and, I know a lot of people compare her to Steph Curry, which is understandable because she can pull it from the logo and hit it. But the difference is she's got the ball in her hands on every trip down the floor. And she is every bit the master facilitator that any other, great point guard, Magic Johnson or whoever has ever been, in addition to being a deadly scorer. And to me, that her passes, they were some of the best passes I've ever seen in the women's game, leading her teammates straight to the goal, right on the money. They didn't have to, hit them in stride, hit them straight in the hands and stuff like that. So all those things sort of conspired against LSU. And LSU, is certainly didn't play its best game defensively either. Didn't get back in transition a lot of times on defense, and led to, at least one too many run-out baskets, if not several too many run-out baskets. And just as you went back, Reed, and we have no idea just how bad Angel's ankle hurt in that second half, but by the same token, 21 missed layups and, only 14 second chance points on 23 rebounds. That's incredible.
That's
incredible.
Right there. That's the story.
And as you guys were there, you saw it firsthand, as did the rest of us, as did the other 12.3 million of us who watched on television. How many of those putbacks in this third quarter just felt like there was a lid on the goal, and putback after putback. Sometimes you're talking about third and fourth chance putbacks that just did not fall, and so all those things and inability to either get the ball to Anissa and Angel for that matter in the post. I was playing that zone and trying to pack it in, and as we'll discuss here in a moment, LSU shot 38.6% from the floor. Their season average was 46.2%. LSU shot 11 of 17 from the free throw line. Their average this season was 20 of 27. They're built to get to that. It's just as you said, Ray. They're built to get to the line. They're built to get a lot of offensive rebounds, which they did, and put them back and make them. And that was the one thing that they just could not, for whatever reason, could not get done and could not get away. But all this having been said, to your gentleman's point, sometimes the greatest player in women's college basketball at the moment is hot and she's on fire, and it's not your night, kid. And sometimes that's the way it goes. So, it's certainly a shame to see them fall a little bit short of the Final Four. But by the same token, in many ways, you just say, well, this was a bad draw too.
Yeah, and Iowa's done a really good job of sort of optimizing their system around Caitlin Clark, right?
Yeah.
They sort of play a modern style of basketball. It really contrasts with the way LSU plays. They go pretty much 5 out. They have it's Caitlin Clark and then 4 of the shooters pretty much basically most of the time. They lead the country in 3-point attempts. They lead the country in 3-point makes. And Caitlin Clark, she really, everything revolves around her, and the players around her have learned how to cut. They've learned how to, flash, make themselves open for passes and get open layups around her and set her up to, deliver those passes. So Iowa's done a good job. The main takeaway for me is just how good of a job they've done of sort of creating a system around her, that can really bring out the best in her and really optimize her best traits.
Might have to tweak that system next year when she's in the WNBA.
A little bit. A little bit.
It won't be quite. It's kind of like LSU on offense. You won't have a quarterback rushing for 1,100 yards this year.
No, you won't.
So you got to change.
Yeah. So she's I'd hope those 12.3 million people keep watching. They watch the Final Four because Iowa UConn is a huge game as well. It's not just Iowa LSU. So
right.
That's the thing. You can like if you're a fan and you're like now, and certainly if you're a competitor, like anyone associated with the LSU team. No, it's all about you want to win and you're disappointed if you don't win, but if there is a bigger picture here, and that's the happening that this game was, And for it, I did not think, because the national championship last year drew 9.9 million viewers on a Sunday afternoon on ABC network television, and this was a Monday night on ESPN. And like you said, all the different platforms and stuff. It's not just people watching on cable TV, obviously, anymore. And there's 12.3 million people. There were people at a movie theater watching in Iowa, apparently, and just there had to be lots of sports bars and watch parties going on, and
social media was ablaze with I'm making this up because I don't remember exactly what games were going on where, but you would see, I think, like that Texas Rangers game or whatever, they had it on the video screen before first pitch and stuff like that. I mean, it was that big a deal.
It was. It was like, if you're an old timer like myself, you remember when Larry Bird and Magic Johnson played in the 1979 NCAA final. Magic Johnson from Michigan State beat Bird and Indiana State. This was like if they met again in 1980 in the Elite Eight, in the tournament. What would that have been? They didn't. Of course, they met and they started meeting in the NBA, and those were huge games. But this was the perfect storm of these two great teams and great players that people know and have awareness of. And they're familiar. They're familiar with Caitlin. They're familiar with Angel and some of the other players as well. And certainly the Kim Mulkey factor as well. And it just became this happening. And it was really cool to see for college basketball. The only thing that would have been cooler is if they'd met in the Final Four instead of this game. But I think this had to surpass anyone's expectations in terms of viewership and interest across the country. And these young ladies, these young women have changed their game, and I think the legacy that Angel Reese leaves behind and Caitlin Clark will leave behind is something we're going to be talking about for many years.
They tuned in not just because of Caitlin Clark. They tuned in
absolutely not,
to watch LSU too, because we saw that actually throughout the season. Throughout the season, in one in which this is the first time I can remember where more people were interested in the women's game than the men's game. Juju Watkins and Paige Beckers and whoever else. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple of superstars already.
And just undefeated, South Carolina.
And undefeated, South Carolina's undefeated. They might very well, probably will win the national championship.
And some of these other games did big numbers.
Yes.
ESPN kept putting out numbers from the Sweet 16 games. But if it was UCLA, if UCLA had beaten LSU and it was UCLA Iowa, that would have been a very good number.
Would have been a good number, but LSU was a part of this, and we saw this throughout the season. Reed, you saw it firsthand. The two teams just on I take a regular season conference game, Iowa at Michigan State or something like that, and then LSU, and then when they went up to Baltimore, for what basically was Angel Reese's homecoming game. They sold out the place, and there's a line all the way out the block, right? Mm-hmm. The same thing at Michigan State, Ohio State, or wherever Caitlin went. And Iowa went. There was a line there was a line of people waiting. You remember the LSU South Carolina game here in Baton Rouge, the PMAC. How many people, how many students were out there hours before tip waiting for this thing? So I mean, they were every bit the international celebrities that they have become, and every bit the draw that they've become. And of course, hats off to them. Incidentally, speaking of hey, would have loved to see this in the Final Four or whatever. That sort of leads into the next topic that I wanted to bring up, which is recapping LSU's season. They started, of course, as the consensus number one. The presumption was, at the very least, they're going to make it to the Final Four. Looking back on it now, and I've got a nuanced opinion about this, but I'm going to sort of nail you to the wall with the way I'm going to word this question. So I'll put it to you, Rab, first. Looking back on it now, was this season a success, a failure, or somewhere in between?
Yeah, I'm a very shade of gray person, so I'm going to say somewhere in between. It was, and some of it is just circumstances. Yes. And part of the circumstances was they lost Samaya Smith back in November in the Cayman Islands when they were playing in a tournament, and Guteri Poole was off the team, and what they could have meant to LSU. They had very little depth. They played 7 players once again the other night against Iowa. It was Samaya. If Samaya Smith plays, does that stat go up for LSU on second chance points or layups or maybe it does. Maybe they're an overwhelming team that Caitlin Clark can't even beat. We've kind of forgotten about her, but she was the starter, and she is someone to mention going into next season too, when you talk about what they have returning, and a big part of that. So, there was so. For whatever reason, those things, the Angel suspension early in the year seemed like their chemistry was hard to find. They finally, started to get it together. Things were a little off, it seems, at times with this team. 31-6 is one of the best seasons ever for LSU women's basketball, and they went to the Elite Eight. But in the three biggest games, South Carolina at home, lost by 6. South Carolina in the SEC tournament final without last year Poa. Again, another injury that they had to overcome, lost by 7. And then against Iowa and Caitlin Clark in the Elite Eight, lost by 7. They were just a little bit lacking, and that's probably frustrating after you come off a national championship season. But this is how quickly expectations have mushroomed for LSU women's basketball.
Right.
You would have taken this season in a heartbeat 5 years ago.
100 times out of 100. You would
100 times out of 100,
You'd be doing
yes.
cartwheels in the streets. Before I sort of stick it to you and nail you to the wall, Reed, I'll just put my 2 cents in, which is to say, I know it sounds sort of mealy-mouthed to say, well, hey, it's somewhere in between. The number one reason I will say it's somewhere in between is because just think of this. What we all got on this podcast and so many other people, coast to coast, got on whatever platform they happen to be on and said that the Albany 2 Regional looked for everything like easily the most difficult regional out of the 4. What if LSU had been dumped into the? I mean, no disrespect to North Carolina State, but what if they'd have been dumped into that regional? Don't you think their chances to get through to the Final Four go up almost immediately? Just think about that. Look, sometimes you got a bad draw. This was, I don't know if you want to call it a bad draw, but it certainly was a hell of a tough draw.
Yeah, and you mentioned the role of luck last year.
Yes.
In order to win a championship, you need to have the talent. You need to deliver when it matters most, but you also need a couple breaks to get there. And we've talked about this ad nauseum. The Utah game came down to free throws down the stretch. Missed a couple free throws. LSU gets to the Elite Eight. And then, once they get there, they
didn't have to play top-seeded
They didn't
Indiana.
have to play top-seeded Indiana.
They didn't have to play South Carolina in the final.
And so I think last year, sort of the luck that they got, it sort of regressed, back to some breaks. They had to deal with injuries. They had to deal with departures. They had to deal with, they had to run into a lot of good teams in order to get back to the Final Four, and it was just too much. It was just, something was just missing. They couldn't get past South Carolina. They just needed a little extra more to get past the top 2 teams in the country, South Carolina and Iowa. So it's just the what you're going to remember from this season is how they got this far. They got to the doorstep of the Final Four, but they just needed a little extra to get over that hump. And that's not something that they had.
And just, again, LSU basically won the championship playing 8 players last year. They played 7, and really even against Iowa, it was barely 7 because Aaliyah Del Rosario barely played any minutes. So you're really talking about 6 and change. How different might it have been? And of course, this is all part of it too. There's no way to say when injuries are going to happen, or who's going to get lucky with injuries and who's not. But how different might it have been if Samaya Smith had been able to play all season? Because as you all saw, and I'm sure you would agree, she looked like she was just about to turn a corner and really turn it on. So, which is good news though, because obviously we all expect Samaya Smith to come back next season for 24-25. So we will take a break here and just go through some business, of course, as always, and tell you that, again, we are here on Mondays and Thursdays on the LSU Sports Insider, and we are typically here on all our social channels, specifically our YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. You can find us there live. We go live every Monday and Thursday. If you don't find us there live, you can find us there on that same YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. You can find us there after the fact. So please subscribe to that. Please subscribe to The Advocate if you have not already, if you're an LSU fan. And why else would you be tuning in? You know that The Advocate's always been the #1 destination for LSU sports. So, and nothing has changed clearly on that. We cover all LSU sports, as many as we can. We do a great job. Our writers do a great job, a bang-up job, covering these teams from start to finish. So please subscribe to The Advocate and stay up to date with everything. You go to theadvocate.com/subscribe. And to make sure that you don't miss any of the major headlines, you can get our LSU newsletter sent straight to your inbox. So to do that, You can go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter to sign up for that and get everything sent to your inbox, to your desktop, to your email, and get that taken care of. And of course, we can always come to you through Apple Podcasts as well, or Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. If you don't tune in to YouTube as well. So, with that in mind, we will I'm going to say turn the corner, I guess, and start looking toward next year. But before we do that, let's talk about the here and now. The here and now, as we come to you midday Monday, is that Angel is. I didn't expect any other decision other than that she was probably, hey, I've played 4 years. I am now an international celebrity. I can make lots of money still, and I can go realize my dreams of being a professional basketball player. And I will say this is not anything that Angel sent, but this is my 2 cents on this, is that, look, Baton Rouge, she's kind of in a fishbowl. You know, she's a huge international celebrity who's now got to probably stay somewhere near campus, even if she doesn't go to classes in person. She's got to take classes online and all that. And long story short, she bows out. Her 2-year career at LSU, she averaged 20.9 points, 14.4 rebounds, and she leaves LSU 2 years with an overall record of 65-8. Reed, that's pretty salty.
Yeah, it's really good. She leaves a legacy behind, one of the best players to ever suit up in an LSU uniform, you know. And Rab, is more of, you know, your perspective here, but she's right up there with Simone Augustus, Sylvia Fowles, some of the, you know, the legends of the LSU program. I'd imagine she'll get her jersey retired someday. You know, she's the first one to really lead LSU to a national championship. She did something that Sylvia Fowles, Simone Augustus couldn't do, you know, so that's her legacy, you know, on the court and off the court as well. If you just think about how much she and, you know, LSU and some of the other stars around women's basketball have helped grow the game so much and take it to this level where we see 12.3 million people watching an Elite Eight game. I think that's also going to be a huge part of her legacy. And so, yeah, she's ready to move on. She's ready to take that next step in her career. And at LSU, she probably did all that she could, you know, when you think about, you know, what she did in her 2 years here.
I would say, Rab, and this is my 2 cents, but from my perspective, LSU owes Angel Reese nothing, and Angel Reese owes LSU nothing. They both got the absolute most from each other they possibly could have gotten. And, of course, you know, you two gentlemen were there in the post-game press conference after LSU's loss, and that was, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to guess that's as emotional as we've ever seen Angel Reese. And that said to me that she admitted and straight up, you know, put it out there. Hey, look, I've been through a lot. I've been through maybe arguably more than anybody else could have gone through in a 2-year college career. And God bless. Time to move on. Tip your cap. You know, one of the best ever.
Yeah, it all came flooding out. So maybe that probably should have been an indication that she was going like, I've been through a lot.
That's
I've
what I
had to
thought.
endure a lot and not said a lot about it. And it's unfortunate. It's as you said, the fishbowl that especially that athletes, especially female athletes, deal with. Now you can say, hey, they don't have to have all the fame and adulation. They could just go be a regular student, and that's true. That there's a trade-off for it, and it's hard to know where the balance comes in. You know, when it's worth it or not. But I will disagree with you just a little bit. I think LSU does owe her a great debt, a great amount of gratitude.
Actually, we'll get to that. Yes, because I want to talk about what they maybe should do.
Yeah.
For her, you and I talked about that beforehand. I want to bring it up now too.
To what Reed said, you know, you name any basketball great, man or woman at LSU, and there have been some great ones, you know,
Hall of Famers,
Naismith Hall of Famers, you know, Bob Pettit, Pete Maravich, Shaquille O'Neal, people like Rudy Macklin, who was the star of the 1981 Final Four team. And then on the women's side, Simone Augustus and Sylvia Fowles, who are locks to go into the Naismith Hall of Fame for their entirety of their careers, college, pro, and internationally. And Tamika Johnson, Marie Ferdinand, who was a wonderful player, an All-American back in the early 2000s, one of my favorite players ever to watch at LSU. And she did something that none of them did. It led LSU to a national championship. and help revive the program. Kim Mulkey revived the program, but you got to have the pieces. You had to have Norman Dale come and take the job, but you got to have Joey Chitwood Jimmy Chitwood putting in the ball in the basket, and that's what she did, and she just became must see. You had to tune in and watch LSU play. This play is Angel Reese. She's amazing. The Bayou Barbie. She's all these things. I got to see her play. I got to go see her play in person.
And that's the other thing too. Don't we? In Louisiana, maybe I don't want to speak for everybody, but in Louisiana, don't we love people who do it with flair? And if ever there was somebody who did it with flair, it's Angel Reese.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's part of it. We want. People want to be, enthralled and entertained and everything, and she fit all those bills, and she embraced it.
Yes.
The Bayou Barbie, she's from Baltimore, Maryland, and she's not from here, and she leaves, an incredible legacy. I would like to have seen her play one more year personally. I wrote this the other day, and I still feel that way. I think she could benefit from another year in college to try to extend her game.
From a basketball standpoint, you can make that argument, I think. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Brad, but I think, post moves and things like that, sort of offense, maybe, being able to, step out and hit an 8-footer or 10-footer.
She made one 3-pointer all year long.
So I think from a basketball standpoint, you can make that argument. But, I mean, listen, just from her rebounding alone, she's going to find a place in the NBA.
Oh yeah. I mean, maybe in a Dennis Rodman kind of role or something like that. But at the same time, you get one career. An athlete gets one career, and you have to decide what's best for you. And she has played 4 years, and we've only seen her for 2. But she was 2 years at Maryland, and so she's been in college for 4 years. She's gotten a degree.
She's
on pace.
Online to get her degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to respect her decision, and I certainly do, and I wish her the best at the next level. I think she has a chance to be in the Naismith Hall of Fame one day as well. We have to see how her pro career develops, but for what she's done at college, she's built quite a foundation for herself.
It's you have to remember too that regardless of what happens in your pro career, and this is true with the WNBA and the NBA, it's the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's Pro Basketball Hall of Fame. It's the Basketball Hall of Fame.
There's a Women's College Basketball Hall of Fame, and she will be in that.
Yes.
There's a Women's Basketball Hall of Fame.
By
She'll
acclamation.
Be in that. Yeah, by acclamation. No problem. But she's got a chance. She's going to have to continue to develop and grow her game, and I think she would, like I said, benefited from doing that at LSU. But she's got a chance to do those things, and you have to wish her the best because she gave LSU her best and deserves to be celebrated for everything she did.
And we should point out ESPN had a mock draft for their latest one this morning. She's projected 7th overall to the
Minnesota Lynx. Wouldn't that be fitting?
Yeah, it would. Minnesota
Simone's
Lynx.
old team.
So that's where her draft outlook is looking right now, and the draft is in a week and a half.
That's right.
So it's coming quick. So we'll find out soon where she's headed.
So I thought somebody put this out on social, and I am more than happy to rip it off and use it here. I'll just, again, you two gentlemen saw so much, almost the entirety of Angel's career at LSU. What will you remember most?
I will just her relentlessness around the basket, just to put the ball up. If you miss, it's going to get. How many times did she? It's like she'd shoot it and miss and get it back and shoot it and miss, get it back and put it up a third or a fourth time sometimes. She just couldn't be denied. And when the ball, they said of some baseball player one time that his glove was where fly balls
go to die.
Yeah. I think it might have been Shoeless Joe Jackson or something like that. When the ball hit her hands, she was getting that rebound.
Right.
You weren't getting it away from her.
Right.
And it's just, she has almost like she's got stickum or something like that. Like an old time NFL wide receiver, and just her relentlessness to the basket and that passion she played with. That's what I remember most. Not one specific play or anything, like just a general attitude that she brought to every single game.
Go ahead.
I think I'm going to remember two things. The first is her press conference after LSU won the national championship last year, when she did the hand wag to Caitlin Clark, pointed at her ring finger, and took criticism online for that.
She was taking criticism before she made it to the post-game press conference.
Exactly. And so she, what she said in that post-game press conference was like, I'm going to do me. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be unapologetic. No, and whatever people want to say about me, that's fine. They can say whatever they want. So she really, signaled there a commitment to, what she would build her brand off of. That commitment to being herself, no matter what anyone might say about her. And I think that's one thing she and Kim Mulkey have in common. They're both what's the word? They're both loud. They're both
they're fighters.
Aggressive. They're fighters. They're committed to being themselves. No matter what people say about her. And so when you contrast that press conference with the one she had after LSU's second game against Iowa, the loss, when she sort of broke down in tears, and sort of went through everything she's been through in the last year, you really showed how she paid some kind of a price for her fame taking off as quickly as it did, right? I can't imagine for a 21-year-old for this to all happen so quickly. There isn't much of a blueprint for her, for someone to have this much star power, to have this much NIL earning potential, because people forget, like, we're still relatively new into this name, image, and likeness era, and these athletes who are at the forefront of it, they're really guinea pigs in a way, because we don't know what it's like for these college athletes to have their fame and their marketing ability take off so quickly. And I think you saw, she benefited considerably from all that, but it also took a toll on her, and that's what I think I'll remember the most.
I think it's important to note too that not only are we sort of in a new era, and she is at the absolute forefront of that new era. Her brand had already started to build through last season, but her international, and I've used this phrase over and over, and I keep on trying to figure out a different phrase to use, but I just keep going back to it. Her as an international celebrity, that happened almost overnight. I mean, it really did happen with that Final Four and with that championship and the exchange, and her at that press conference saying, "Hey, I'm not going to be." And I know you mentioned this on social yesterday, Reed, that one of your favorite photos that we've had at the Advocate was Hillary Scheinek's photo of Angel shooting her left-handed jump shot in warm-ups, and you can see very clearly on her forehand that she got this, and I'm pretty sure that she got it after the Final Four, last year's Final Four.
In the offseason, yeah.
And it says unapologetic. It's very small and very sort of ironically understated as a tattoo, but that's Angel Reese. Absolutely. If we're talking about specific moments, there's tons of them, of course. The pointing of the finger, the hand waving, all that jazz. I know that's what the overwhelming majority of America will remember her, better or worse, however the individual person feels about that moment. I personally, from a basketball standpoint, Rab, again, you mentioned her as I'm a mad dog killer here underneath this glass, and I'm going to get every rebound I got. I'm going to fight for all of it. But I think, what was a great microcosm of her game as well was that exchange. I can't remember, they're playing Tennessee. The shoe block is what I'm talking about, where she lost her shoe. She's holding her shoe in her left hand, and she blocks the player, rejects her coming down, and then gives her a good long stare too. To me, that was everything about, like, I'm a fighter. I'm going to let you know about it. I'm here to win, and I'm here to humble you, and I'm not going to be a wallflower about it too. I know that she has taken an enormous amount of criticism. So much of it was from plenty of people who, I'll say it, they're being opportunistic about it. They see a reason to score some cheap political points over it, and it's egregiously unfair. I know others have been through that kind of thing. I have not, thankfully, fortunately, in some cases out of privilege, all that. But the notion that somebody would tell you she's going to beat you, and then back it up and tell you again about it. Yep. I love that. Listen, I know that's not for everybody, but speaking as somebody who, one of my favorite athletes growing up all the time, I was in the right age frame for this, but Deion Sanders was my favorite. There's nobody who was going to tell you more about what they were going to do than Deion Sanders, and then tell you after the fact. And if you get humbled, and you're going to have to go say, hey, look, tip your cap. They got me. And, why Angel's taking so much of this, we can leave for everybody else to, give their opinions and insights on why they think that's the case. But listen, who among us does not love a great spirited competitor, a fighter, a trash talker? She put on a show. Who among us, isn't watching sports incidentally to see somebody who's going to put on a great show athletically and then also just in terms of her personality.
Yep.
I'm going to put this to you, Rab. You and I were talking about this yesterday, right after she made her decision. And I don't know. Honestly didn't think about it until till Thursday morning when she made her decision. I'm going to make the case and say yes. Should Angel Reese get a statue one day on this campus, on the LSU campus?
I'm gonna lead up to that by saying she definitely is going to get her whatever new arena LSU winds up with, assuming they do. She's going to get her name and jersey
that's
number.
A given.
Number
Yes.
10 is going up there next to Sylvia Fowles and Simone Augustus, and all the other great LSU great players up there. A statue. That is kind of a fraught question for me. I'm kind of statued out at LSU, with LSU right now. I think they need to tap the brakes
fair.
on that because you think shouldn't there a baseball player or two who deserves a statue? What do you say for Dylan Cruz or Todd Walker or someone shouldn't you represent track and field with some so. And Joe Burrow, and that said, I think they're going to need to do something with Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels to go with the Billy Cannon statue for football, if I may go off topic a little bit. But yeah, if you want to say you're honoring all these other people, there's that line of four greats, who have statues: Shaq, Simone, Pete, and Bob Pettit. She belongs right up there with them, and
She did. If
those people got them, then yeah, you'd have to say yes.
You mentioned it before. She did something that none of the rest of them did.
None of them did, and she's and I think there's a very good chance LSU will win another national championship under Kim Mulkey.
Right,
but she's the first.
That's right.
And she took. Remember, LSU had never won in either the men's or women's game. Had even won a Final Four game before they beat Virginia Tech in the semifinals last year, much less win a national championship. So, yeah, if all those other people can get one, she can get one too. Yeah, for sure.
The special place, as Rab, you and I happen to go to high school here in Baton Rouge and have been here for quite a while. So there's a special place in I've always said that I thought Simone it's not even debatable. She's the most accomplished Baton Rouge born athlete that this city's ever had.
Yeah.
And so there's a special place in all our hearts, I think, for Simone. And my personal favorite was always Sylvia Fowles, which ironically, I guess, in some ways, because Sylvia, you covered her firsthand, Rab. What I loved about Sylvia, she was the world's greatest sweetheart of a person and just such a warm human being. And then you got her on the floor, and she's just a complete mad dog killer. But we all love Big Sil.
Yes.
Again, Simone earned a statue. Simone, you want 2 statues. You give 3, 4. I don't. That great. God bless. But if she got a statue, then yes, I do think that Angel Reese at some point, somewhere down the line, yeah, why not? Why shouldn't she be in bronze? She has earned it for all my money. So let's talk about she is departed. We know that. The deadline presumably has passed for players to declare. It's Reed, and you can explain this in further detail. It's usually 48 hours after your last game to declare for the WNBA draft, and so we're all sort of looking around, waiting around here as of midday Thursday, waiting for an announcement, some sort of announcement of any kind about Hailey Van Lith. What can you tell us?
Yeah, we still don't know what her plans are. So just reset. The WNBA season is really soon. It starts in May. So the WNBA draft is April 15th. And because it's also soon, right as the college season is ending, the WNBA has a deadline of April 1st for players to decide if they wanted to declare for the draft or return to college if they have any eligibility left, like these seniors who have that 5th year from COVID. So April 1st came, and if your team is still playing in the Elite Eight or the Final Four, the WNBA is saying you have 48 hours to let us know if you're going to come into the draft. And so LSU loses on Monday, which meant they had Wednesday evening to sort of make their decisions. We saw Angel Reese make that pretty early on Wednesday, but we haven't heard anything from Hailey Van Lith. We haven't heard anything from her or the WNBA saying that she has declared for the draft. I think it's safe to presume that if she had declared for the draft, we probably would have heard something by now.
At least from the league.
Right? Yeah, at least from the league. So that's sort of leaves us with sort of two possibilities. Is she going to come back for her 5th season at LSU, or is she going to hit the transfer portal and sort of go somewhere else? So I think that's probably the decision that she's trying to make right now. She's probably trying to weigh those decisions. If you remember, she will be a 2-time transfer if she does hit the portal, but that shouldn't affect her status to play right away because long, complicated process, NCAA waivers, court orders, those 2-time transfers can play right away now.
Right.
So she can, if she so chooses, she can come back to LSU. Kim Mulkey has said that she would be welcome back at LSU, that she hopes Hailey Van Lith returns to LSU. But there's also the possibility that she enters the portal and tries to find somewhere else to play. So we're just waiting to hear from her, for her to make a decision. The transfer portal, coincidentally, it opens the day after Selection Sunday, and then it's open for 45 days, I believe. So there's still a few weeks left of that frame. So she's got some time to make that decision. If she does want to enter the portal, again, this is all speculation. We don't know if that's what she's considering, but those are her two paths that she has left to take.
We know that Hailey came here with a couple of very specific goals in mind, and she wanted to show off sort of a different set of skills and show that she more than just a scorer, that she could distribute and things of that nature, play defense. And we can debate about whether she accomplished everything she wanted to accomplish. She came here knowing that her scoring numbers were going to go down. I don't know whether she banked on her scoring numbers going this far down and whether she really accomplished everything she wanted to as a point guard, because that was a new position for her. So I guess with all that said, we don't know for sure how much she enjoyed this year, frankly. She may have had a blast. She certainly looked like she was enjoying herself at certain times, enjoying her teammates and enjoying being, certainly a player on a winning team, on an Elite Eight team. But we don't know what it was like behind closed doors for her, and how difficult practice and training and those things may or may not have been. So we will see. I personally, I don't know. I'm not Hailey Van Lith, but I would think that if I were her, I would say, Coach Mulkey, I love you. I know you're going to get the most out of me. I know you're going to be hard on me. I would love to stay here, and can you please find us a point guard out of the transfer portal? That's what I would say if I were her. But maybe I'm wrong, and you guys can tell me I'm wrong if I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be nice, but I mean, again, it's a personal decision, and I think she should come back, and but it's I've said this since I wrote that column the day after the championship game, the Elite Eight game. They need to have her go back to being a shooting guard and then bring another point guard. Now that potentially creates some problems. If you have someone playing, player X playing point guard, and you have Hailey being a shooting guard, what do you do with the other two existing shooting guards that you have in Flo J. Johnson and Michaela Williams? Someone's got to go to the bench. And you
go Iowa style, and Anissa is your post player at 6'1", maybe. I don't know. I mean,
then Samaya Smith comes off.
Right, that's true.
That would be a big departure from the way Kim Mulkey prefers to play.
Very much so. Yes.
And you've just brought in a transfer jersey, Wolfenbarger, who's 6'5", but plays more of a wing kind of role. Right, she's not going to be. She's not going to be a traditional center.
She's not a Leah Del Rosario or Samaya Smith. She's got more of a perimeter oriented game.
So it would have to be kind of finessed, and I think for her to want to come back in the right situation. It would not shock me if she went to another school, and I think she definitely needs to play somewhere next year and to re-up her stock a little bit, because I saw a projection from on3.com that said, Angel's going to be a top 10 pick. She's going to be a second-round pick or a free agent, and that makes it very hard to make a WNBA roster.
Particularly in the WNBA, we saw just last year, and that was an eye opener, I think, probably for many sort of casual fans who didn't understand how this works. LaDeja Williams goes first round. She went first round, right? She goes second round.
I think she went early second.
Early second round, and Alexis Morris went early second round, and very quickly, summarily, they were cut from their teams because, again, there's only 12 players on a roster and only 12 teams. That makes up 144 spots. And maybe you're not going to beat out that veteran who's been playing for 6 years, who's signed in the offseason. And that's sort of the way it is. It's a shame, you can say, but that's the truth. And so to your point.
I have to say for Hailey, this has probably been a over on balance.
I can't imagine it has.
A frustrating season. Like you said, was it a success? Was it a failure? Was it something in between? again, it was something in between, but it wasn't a raving success. I mean, she knows that she's kind of small, undersized, and somewhat slow of foot to play a shooting guard in the WNBA. So she's like, okay, well, if I can learn to do the point guard, and it just doesn't. I read so more of their games in person than I did, but it just didn't quite translate into that. And if you're like, what's the difference? You're playing your guard. You get they're handling the ball, but it's the difference between distributing the ball and getting everyone involved in the offense and getting your offense yourself, as to have someone setting you up for the offense like they do for Michaela Williams, a lot of the time. So it's it doesn't quite translate the same, and I think maybe that was a bit. That probably was a little bit jarring for her too.
Yeah.
I think it was for all of us.
And if we're talking about next year's team too, we all said this in a previous podcast. We all feel like next year, there's just no doubt about it. Next year's team is going to be Flau'jae's team from a leadership standpoint.
Yes.
And so that'll be an interesting thing to have to navigate for whoever the point guard is too, to make sure that that Flau'jae is as involved as an off guard can possibly be involved, because you're going to need that leadership, and you're going to need that. You're going to want that ball in her hands as much as you can possibly get it to her. So,
but they've got to have a point guard. If they have a point guard, they're a national championship contender once again. If they're not, if they have a similar point guard situation to what they had this year, I don't see them being a national championship.
In that starting lineup, you can pencil in Flau'jae, Michaela Williams, Anissa Morrow, and Samaya Smith. I think.
Correct.
Who's the fifth player? Do you bring someone in from the portal? Is it Hailey Van Lith? Is it last year Poa? If you don't bring somebody in the portal, those are the questions they're gonna have to figure out as we get into the off season.
And for that matter, let's talk about this. Of course, we don't know. I don't think there's a one of us, if we're being frank, who knew Anissa Morrow's name last year. Maybe we knew her name, but we certainly didn't expect that she would end up at LSU at this time last year. And so maybe there are several transfers. We got to assume there's going to be several transfers coming in, and this is not typical. We know that Kim Mulkey likes to play with a short bench, so it's not typical that maybe one of these role players who barely got off the bench would suddenly turn into a key contributor. But it has happened, and if there are any local fans out there who remember the name Moon Urson. Moon Urson played at Destrehan. She was two-time Gatorade Player of the Year in this state, and spent her first couple of years at Baylor not doing a whole lot, averaging maybe 10, 11 minutes, a couple, 4 or 5 points a game. And then her third or fourth year at Baylor, she's all of a sudden blossomed and became maybe not their best player, but certainly one of those key players, and won a national championship with Kim. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that say, hey, maybe a Janae Kent or somebody like that starts to turn a corner, and maybe they have earned the coach's trust to be able to go out there and give them a 10, 12, 14 minutes off the bench if they continue to improve. But yes, we do expect, don't we all expect, that they're probably going to go do some big game hunting in the transfer portal, whoever that's going to be.
As of right now, there aren't a whole lot of big names to hunt in the transfer portal. Right now, the best player in the portal is Georgia Amore, who a lot of LSU fans probably remember from last year in the Final Four. She was Virginia Tech's point guard. Virginia Tech's coach, Kenny Brooks, left Virginia Tech. He's now the coach at Kentucky. And a lot of people are sort of presuming and expecting that she's going to follow him to Kentucky.
But it hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But she right now, as we speak, she is the best player in the portal.
Yes.
It would take a lot for another player to enter the portal to be better than her, because she's really good. She's the big fish right now. The presumption is that she's headed to Kentucky, but we don't know that for sure.
Right. Reed, I obviously we all know about Jada Richard coming in. Who else does LSU have in the way of recruits for the next 2 years now?
Well, Jada Richard is the only one in the 2024 class, where we know that she's the only one they're probably going to bring in. She's going to be the extent of their 2024 class.
Gatorade Player of the Year from Lafayette Christian.
Lafayette Christian. She led Lafayette Christian to 4 straight state titles. So she's going to be the only recruit pretty much they bring in this cycle, and that's fine because they've got so many players coming back,
that's
presumably.
Right.
So they wouldn't exactly have the space to bring in a 4 or 5 player class. 2025, they just picked up a commitment from Bella Hines. She's a point guard from New Mexico. She's still a verbal commitment. So that's the first addition to their recruiting class in 2025. So after that, they've got a few big names they're going after in 2025. And so that's where recruiting stands. There isn't too much activity right now, but it could pick up in the offseason.
And Bella Hines, you can find her dad's put out lots of videos on her basketball playing out there online. Little Caitlin Clark light, I'm not saying she's gonna be Caitlin Clark,
yeah.
but she's got a lot of range, and she kind of physically reminds you of Caitlin a little bit, and she likes to shoot it, and she'll put up a lot of shots.
As for the rest of the other players on LSU's team, of course, we'll wait and see what happens with Hailey Van Lith. But everybody else is eligible to come back. Last year, Poa's got another year. Samaya, obviously. I mean, even players like Amani Bartlett and obviously, Del Rosario, Angelica Velez, and anyone else, really, frankly, who's on the roster. They are all eligible. And to your point, that's why they don't have a signing class of 3 or 4 or 2 or whatever, because they've got a big transfer coming in already.
Yes.
And Jada Richard from down the road in Lafayette. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure this year. I don't know why we should expect anything else from LSU and from Kim Mulkey's squad, but we were, if nothing else, we were entertained from start to finish in this season. We got our money's worth out of the whole thing, and I'm sure we will continue to get our money's worth as we go down the road with the LSU women's basketball program. I will just sort of say in closing, and I'm sure you guys would agree, if anybody's sort of heartbroken or disappointed, LSU fans out there, it's certainly understandable, but by the same token, think about where this program was 3 years ago, and how disappointed you would be with a loss in the Elite Eight to the leading scorer of all time. So I don't know, anything you guys want to say, just sort of in closing to wrap up.
As Kim Mulkey said Monday night, it's okay to be sad.
Yeah.
Everyone but one team goes home sad, right, from both tournaments. 67 teams on the men's side, 67 teams on the women's side go home in tears, or to some degree. Someone's career is over. Someone's never playing basketball again, or whatever. That's what I love. I love the emotions of the celebration and the despair of the NCAA tournament. I think it's one of the things that makes it so compelling, and that's what you have with LSU. It's if people are disappointed, it means they care, and they didn't care about LSU women's basketball 5 years ago
and proved it.
Yeah, so there were only a few hundred people at their home games, if that. So this is a big change, and I would expect, as we have talked many times, off camera, we expect LSU, that we have to prepare to have, for them to make long, deep runs in the NCAA tournament under Kim Mulkey, and I don't think that's going to change. Somehow, some way, she's going to put together a fine team for next season, and it's going to be exciting to see what that team does. Anything else you want to add, Reed? Any 2 cents from your first season on the beat full time?
They certainly kept me busy. A lot of controversies, a lot of unexpected moments, a lot of memorable press conference moments. It was in all seriousness, it was a blast. It was really fun. It's super cool that there's such a good team with so many good personalities, so many good characters, so many good stories for us to tell. It was a blast. It was never really a dull moment, and I still haven't had a dull moment yet.
I was about to say, you probably got another month worth of drama here.
The season's over, but we're still unpacking everything. So it's it was really fun, and it was really cool. It was a really really fun season to be around, and so it's going to be an interesting off season. It'll be interesting to see how they attack things. Stick with us, please, if you would, not just for LSU women's basketball and everything that comes along with it. Stick with us, of course, as we go through and finish off spring practice for LSU football. See if baseball can't turn the corner here at some point. Of course, we've got the LSU gymnastics team as well, hitting the NCAA. We didn't even talk about that, Rabbit. They're hitting the NCAA regionals this weekend. Mm-hmm. Presumably, they will handle their business and get through to the national championships. And we will see whether they can bring home a title as well, which would be their first title, incidentally. There's always something to keep up with. And we, of course, will be the number one destination, as we always have been, for LSU sports coverage. So go to theadvocate.com/subscribe and join us if you have not already, whether it's in print or digital. And stay up to date with everything. Get all the latest headlines sent straight to your inbox with the LSU newsletter. Go to theadvocate.com/LSU
LSU newsletter to get it sent straight to your inbox and stay up to date with everything. We are here every Monday and Thursday on the LSU Sports Insider. We're here on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever other finer podcasts are found. And of course, we are also on all our social channels. We are live on our YouTube channel every Monday and Thursday. That YouTube channel, LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. Give us a search on YouTube and find us and subscribe. That way you'll never miss an episode. You'll catch us live every Monday and Thursday. And if you don't catch us live, you can catch us after the fact on that channel anytime you like. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure yet again. For Reed Darcey, for Sevi Ballesteros, and for Robert Young behind the glass, I'm Perryn Keys. This has been the LSU Sports Insider.